My son called me useless. It was such a small word, but it cut deeper than any sharp object ever could. It wasn't just the word that stung, it was the way he said it. The way he looked at me like I was an inconvenience, an old relic that had overstayed its welcome. Jason, my only son, had always been my pride and joy. I had poured everything I had into raising him, and for years, he was the center of my world. I had loved him more than I loved myself. But now, at 40 years old, he saw me as nothing but a burden. And what hurt the most was the way he dismissed me. His words filled with contempt, as if I was just another problem in his life. I had always tried to be there for him. I was the mother who made sure there was always food on the table. Always. A roof over his head. And always a warm bed for him to sleep in. I worked long hours, sacrificing my own happiness so that he could have a better life. Jason was a good kid, but like many teenagers, he didn't understand the weight of the sacrifices I made for him. As he got older, he became more independent. His world was expanding, and I was slowly being pushed out of it. But I didn't mind. It was part of life. Children grow up and parents learn to let go. Or at least, I thought that's what I was doing. Jason had always been a bit of a dreamer, focused on big goals and high-paying jobs. I had supported him every step of the way. He wanted to be a lawyer, so I helped him through college, and when he graduated, I gave him everything I could to set him up for success. He landed a job at a prestigious firm, working long hours, making good money. And I was proud of him, so proud of the man he had become. But somewhere along the way, I lost him. When his career took off, I thought that he would finally understand all the sacrifices I had made for him. I thought that maybe, just maybe, he would come back to me, that he would want to spend time together, share his victories and defeats with me. But that didn't happen. He became distant. His calls became infrequent, and when they did come, they were mostly about money. "Mum, I'm struggling with the mortgage," he'd say. "Can you help me out?" Or, "I need some extra cash for the kids' school fees. You know how expensive things are these days." And without hesitation, I would send him the money. I couldn't bear the thought of my son struggling. I thought I was helping him, but in hindsight, I see now that it was only making things worse. Jason got married to Chloe. I thought maybe things would change. I thought the arrival of grandchildren would bring us closer. But the opposite happened. Chloe, as sweet as she was, started to pull him further away from me. It wasn't intentional, but I could see how she took over, how she started to make decisions for Jason without consulting me. I became a stranger in my own son's life. I remember the first time I noticed the change. It was at a family gathering, a birthday party for my grandchild, Ethan. Jason and Chloe were there, of course, but I noticed something in Jason's eyes. It wasn't the warmth I used to see. It was cold, distant. He seemed to be talking to me out of obligation, his eyes constantly glancing at his phone or over my shoulder, as if he couldn't wait to leave. And Chloe, with her smile that didn't reach her eyes, was always by his side, making sure the conversation stayed on neutral topics. Nothing too personal, nothing that might make Jason uncomfortable. I told myself it was just a phase, that maybe it was just the stress of parenthood, of work, of life. But that excuse wore thin after a while. The visits became less frequent. The phone calls dwindled. And when they did call, it was always about money. "Mum, can you lend me a bit for a new car? The old one's on its last legs." Or, "We're thinking about a family vacation. Do you think you could help us out with the costs?" And I gave, because that's what I did. I gave and gave, but no one ever seemed to give back. I worked hard, harder than I should have, always trying to build a nest egg that I thought I could leave behind for Jason and his family. I worked at a job I hated, sitting behind a desk, crunching numbers. Long hours that took a toll on my body. But I never complained. I did it for him. I did it because I wanted him to have everything I didn't. When I finally retired, I thought things would change. I thought Jason and I would have time to reconnect. But that never happened. He was busy with his own life, his own world, and I was left in the background, an afterthought. I kept myself busy, but the loneliness crept in. I tried to fill the silence with books, with hobbies, with anything that could keep my mind occupied. But the truth was, I missed him. I missed being a part of his life, of having someone to talk to share memories with. And then came the phone call that shattered whatever little hope I had left. I had just returned home from the grocery store when my phone rang. I answered, expecting the usual conversation about how busy he was, about how Chloe needed help with the kids. But this time, the words that came out of his mouth were different. They were harsh. They were cruel. "Mom, I can't keep doing this," Jason said, his voice tinged with frustration. "You're always asking for help, always wanting something. From me. I can't keep bailing you out. You're useless." I froze. The words hit me like a slap across the face. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Useless? Me? After everything I had done for him, for his family, this was how he saw me. I didn't say anything at first. I couldn't. My mind was spinning, my heart racing. The tears that I had kept buried for so long began to surface. But I held them back. I wanted to shout, to scream at him, to tell him everything I had done for him, how I had sacrificed my own happiness for his future. But I didn't. Instead, I just stood there silent as he ranted on, oblivious to the pain he was causing. And then, after what felt like an eternity, I spoke. My voice was calm, steady, but underneath it was a storm. "I don't need you to. Help me, Jason. But I need you to understand something. You don't get to treat me like this. You don't get to call me useless just because I'm not in your life the way you want me to be. I've given everything for you, and all I ever wanted in return was to feel like I mattered. But apparently I don't." Jason was silent on the other end of the line. For a moment I thought he might apologize, but instead, the line went dead. He hung up on me. I stood there, holding the phone, feeling the weight of his words pressing down on me. For the first time in years, I realized that my son wasn't the same person I had raised, and I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay. The silence after the phone call felt unbearable. It wasn't just the quiet in my house, it was the deafening quiet in my heart. I stood by the phone for what felt like hours, replaying the words he had said over and over in my mind. "You're useless." I couldn't shake them. They gnawed at me, burrowing deep into my skin like a sickness I couldn't fight off. The rage, the betrayal, the hurt, all of it swirled together in my chest, threatening to suffocate me. But the worst part was that it came from my own son, the one I had loved, the one I had sacrificed everything for. I slowly sank into the couch, the weight of it all pressing down on me. My mind wandered back to all the years I had spent giving, and giving. My work, my sacrifices, my sleepless nights, all of it had been for Jason. I thought I was building a foundation, something strong for him to stand on when life got difficult. But now I realized that foundation had been built on the idea that my love, my presence, would be enough. And I had been wrong. I tried to tell myself it wasn't personal, that maybe Jason was just under pressure, his job, his marriage, the constant juggling of responsibilities. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. No, this was more than that. This was about who I had become in his eyes. An old woman with a crumbling past, a shadow of who I once was. I couldn't deny it anymore. He didn't see me as his mother. I wasn't his protector, his caregiver, or even his emotional support. I had become nothing more than an inconvenience. But as I sat there in the dim light of my living room, I realized something. Jason had called me useless, but in that moment, I realized it wasn't me who had become useless. It was him. I had spent so many years doing everything for him, allowing him to take me for granted, that I had allowed him to become a person who thought it was okay to disrespect me. But no more. The weight that had been pulling me down for so long was lifting. I wasn't going to let him define me any longer. I took a deep breath, straightened my back, and stood up. I couldn't stay here, wallowing in self-pity. I had a decision to make. I could let this break me, or I could do something about it. I wasn't going to sit in the dark, waiting for him to come around. I wasn't going to beg for his love, or his attention. I wasn't going to be his doormat anymore. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in years. The sun was shining through my kitchen window, casting long beams of light across the floor. It felt symbolic, like a new day was breaking, not just in the world around me, but within me as well. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt this strong, this determined. I had let my son dictate so much of my life for so long. But now, I was ready to take it back. I made a cup of coffee, and as I sipped it slowly, I thought about what I needed to do. I couldn't just ignore what had happened. The hurt, the anger, it was all still there. But I wasn't going to let it consume me. No, I had to act. I had to show Jason that he couldn't treat me like this anymore. I had to make him understand that I was not some old woman who would quietly fade away. I was still Sophia, and I had a voice. It was time to use it. I decided I was going to confront him, but not in the way he expected. I wasn't going to yell at him, throw accusations, or cry out in desperation. I had tried that approach before, and it had only pushed him further away. No, this time I would be different. This time I was going to take control of the situation. I would make him face the truth, and I would do it on my terms. Later that afternoon, I sat down at my desk and wrote a letter to Jason. I had always believed that words were more powerful when written. When emotions ran high, it was easy to say things you didn't mean, to let anger cloud your judgment. But writing, it gave me time to think, to consider my words carefully. I wanted this letter to be clear, direct, and most importantly, calm. Jason, I've been thinking a lot about our conversation yesterday. I've been thinking about a lot of things, actually. About how I've allowed myself to be treated by you. About how I've let you walk all over me for far too long. I've always tried to be there for you. Always tried to give you everything you needed, no questions asked. But the truth is, I've been neglecting myself in the process. I've been putting my heart and soul into your life, and in return, I've been called useless. It hurts, Jason. It hurts more than I can put into words. But it also opened my eyes to something important. You've treated me as if I don't matter, as if my worth is only tied to what I can do for you. But I am not a machine, Jason. I am not someone you can just use and discard. I am your mother, and I deserve respect. I want you to understand this. I'm not angry with you because you're successful, or because you're busy, or because your life is moving forward without me. What I'm angry about is the way you've forgotten who I am, the way you've taken me for granted, assuming I would always be there, no matter what. I've spent my whole life trying to be the best mother I could be, and yet now, I feel invisible. I feel as if I've been replaced by the busyness of your life, and I won't stand for it anymore. I won't beg for your attention. I won't chase after you anymore. I deserve more than that. I'm not asking for much, Jason. All I want is for you to realize the value of the person you have in your life. I want you to understand that love is not something that can be taken for granted. It's something that needs to be nurtured. And if you're not willing to nurture our relationship, then I can't keep pretending that everything is okay. This is not about a cruise or money. It's about respect. It's about love. And if you can't give me that, then I'll have to walk away from this toxic relationship. I won't beg for your love anymore. I won't be your doormat. I hope you understand this, Jason, because this is the last time I'm going to ask. I am your mother, and I deserve more than what you've given me. Sincerely, Sophia. I put the pen down, rereading the letter one last time. There were no more tears, no more pleading, just a quiet resolve. It was time for Jason to face the consequences of his actions. It was time for him to see that I was not the same person I had been a few years ago. I was stronger now, and I was ready to take control of my life. I sealed the envelope, wrote Jason's name on it, and put it in my bag. Tomorrow I would send it, and tomorrow my life would change. The next morning, the sun was bright, shining in through the kitchen window. It was the kind of day that felt like a fresh start. I stood in front of the stove, my hands steady as I prepared my breakfast. I have a strange peace about me. The previous day's decisions had not been easy, but they were necessary. I had reached the point where I could no longer live in the shadows of my children's disregard, and it felt like I was finally stepping into the light of my own truth. The letter sat on the table beside me, the bold ink of Jason's name glaring at me. I stared at it, the weight of what I had written sitting heavily in my chest. I had never been one to back down from confrontation, but this was different. It was not just about my pride. This was about my dignity. This was about teaching Jason a lesson he needed to learn before it was too late for both of us. The house was still and silent as I finished my breakfast. I cleaned the dishes, as I always did, and moved around the house. But this time, there was a certain confidence in my steps. I was no longer the tired mother, waiting in silence for her children to notice her. No, I was Sophia, and I had something to say. At noon, I walked to the post office, the envelope securely in my bag. I paused at the door for a moment, looking up at the bright blue sky above. A light breeze brushed past me, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel burdened. I felt free. It wasn't the freedom of running away or escaping. It was the freedom of being true to myself. A freedom I had allowed my children to take away from me for far too long. I sent the letter to Jason that afternoon, and then returned home. But instead of collapsing into the sadness I expected, I found myself focused, grounded. I had done what I needed to do, and now it was out of my hands. Whatever Jason's reaction would be, it was his to bear. For once, I was no longer concerned with the outcome. I had said my piece. The days passed in quiet reflection. I focused on myself, going back to what I had always loved, my garden. The soil felt good in my hands, the plants were flourishing, and the sunlight felt warm on my skin. There was something therapeutic about tending to my plants, about watching life grow and bloom in front of my eyes. I started to feel alive again in ways I hadn't in years. Then 4 days later, my phone rang. I looked at the screen, my breath catching in my throat when I saw Jason's name. I hadn't expected him to call. In fact, I wasn't sure if he would ever speak to me again. I stared at the phone for a few moments, uncertain about what to do. But then I thought about it. I had nothing to hide anymore. I had no more apologies to make. I picked up the phone and pressed it to my ear. "Mum." Jason's voice was low, almost hesitant. "We need to talk." I let out a quiet breath, my heart steady. "I'm listening." "Mum," he started again, his voice wavering slightly. "I'm sorry." There was a long pause before he continued, as though searching for the right words. I didn't realize what I was doing. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of his words settle on my chest. It wasn't the apology I had been waiting for, but it was a start. I should have never called you useless, Jason continued, his voice thick. I've been selfish, Mom, and I'm sorry. I didn't see it. I've been so wrapped up in my own life that I forgot what really matters. The tears that had been threatening to fall for days finally spilled over, but they weren't tears of anger or hurt. They were tears of relief. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't what I had hoped for all along, but it was enough. I was getting through to him. My son was hearing me. Finally. Jason, I said softly, my voice steady despite the tears. I did. This because I love you. That love doesn't mean letting you walk all over me. I can't be the person you turn to only when it's convenient for you. I've been your mother, not your ATM, and it's time you understand that. I've spent my whole life making sure you knew how much I loved you, and it hurts to see you treat me like I'm invisible. There was silence on the other end, and I wondered for a brief second if he had hung up. But then I heard him speak again. Understand now, Jason said, his voice breaking. I get it. I've been a terrible son, and I've been disrespectful. I'm sorry. I've let you down. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. It's not about what you've done, Jason. It's about how you've treated me and how you've treated yourself. You need to see your worth. I've spent so many years fighting for you to see it that I lost sight of my own worth. I don't know how to make it right, Jason said. And I could hear the frustration in his voice. But I'm going to try. I promise you, Mom, I'll do better. I closed my eyes, absorbing his words. There was so much I still needed from him, more than an apology, more than a promise. But right now, this was enough. I know you will, I said, my voice calm but firm. But Jason, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about what you can do to make it right. It's about us building a relationship based on respect. Not money, not convenience. Respect. I understand, Mom, Jason replied, and there was a sincerity in his voice that hadn't been there before. I will do better, I promise. I sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling between us. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, a beginning. I'll see you soon, Jason added. I want to make things right, Mom. I promise. I'll be waiting, I said, feeling something inside me shift. It wasn't a complete resolution, but it was a start. The storm had passed, and the sunlight was beginning to shine through.